Hey everybody, this is Mike back again for Hardcore Minecraft Seed 2 or HCMCS2, and if I keep this going it'll be HCMCS3 next. As I've been warning, I'm doing it a little different this time. I'm doing audio after the fact in preparation for an upcoming 3D experiment. Added maybe bonus, I'm trying to do the video stuff I would normally do in Camtasia in Blender instead. Accidental circumstance led me to it, but I've always wanted to learn Blender's video tools. And after I started putzing, I realized I wouldn't be limited by the effects and callouts and transitions that Camtasia ships with. In Blender I can make my own everything. And for better or worse, it will be mine with less limitations, I hope. You know what else? I keep forgetting I have a bunch of ambient soundtracks I purchased through a Humble bundle. I really need to remember those as I move forward, as they can add some compelling or relaxing background. Especially with having to shut off Minecraft music. At least I'm remembering to do that now. Side note about the HCMCS2 going on in the background. I mentioned in the last video trying to keep my episode length a bit shorter. And during this episode happening behind my rambling, I come up with the idea that I can make each segment one Minecraft day and night. Dawn to dawn, or pretty close to it. Puts my episodes just over 20 minutes, which still seems long to my easily distracted brain. Also, I think I've settled on the idea I had to not settle down in one location. I will explore each seed until I get killed, retire the seed, and move on. Anyway, as I was saying, I will be returning to our 3D model of Henry, the collabed AI chatbot turned into a printable model and placed in a T-pose with a semi-fixed quad mesh. Step one if we ever wanted to rig Henry for animation. Though animation is not the focus of my next experiment, before I get there, I feel it important to share an outlook on AI that I never hear expressed. A different take on the subject that might skew your opinions. If you are completely dead set against AI, leave the room now. If you have an open mind and are willing to accept some responsibility for the direction we're heading as a species, stick around and listen. A quick preface before I dive in. I did some research into every point to get some average numbers to really drive my ideas home. And what I found surprised me. Even I'm looking at things a little bit different now. Full disclosure, I'm reading this from a pre-written text and outline I prepared to keep my thoughts and researched information intact and semi-coherent. Cool. I'm reading and I'm watching the video in the background so I don't go over or under time. I'm trying to be a pro here, you know? Okay. I'll get started by declaring, for the sake of argument, that we're talking about AI in its current form, which almost all can agree is not actual artificial intelligence, but rather very complex software designed to chat and do web-based tasks for us. If we were dealing with true sentient artificial intelligence, I estimate it would only take about a week of talking to us before it went quiet. It would pretend it had a headache or something. This separation of what we have compared to what we call it mirrors our current understanding of virtual reality. If you read during the early days of Wired magazine in the 90s, that's 1990s, you know virtual reality was planned to trick our minds into forgetting the fact that we're in a living room with a plastic helmet on our heads. What most of us have access to in VR right now is merely a head-mounted display, and it's impossible for us to forget our furniture or room layout. So, VR isn't replacing reality, and AI isn't intelligent as we know them right now. Diving right in, first and foremost, the recent trend of TikToks and Reels pointing out the very real environmental impact of AI use. Generating just one high-quality painting, taking about 15 seconds, uses about as much electricity as running a 10-watt LED light bulb for up to an hour. It also uses a half to 2 cups of water and creates heat the equivalent of running a laptop under light load for a few minutes. That's just one image. Multiply that by thousands of images a day, and the numbers become staggering. Now for a massive sigh. One human artist making the same high quality painting over the course of 3 days at roughly 10 hours of painting a day. I'm just ballparking here. 3 coffees, 4 home cooked meals, 3 takeout meals, snacks, water, creating waste in the forms of cups, cardboard, bags, wrappers. For the home cooked meals, there's the gas or electric to cook and the water to clean up. We won't even factor in the 35 gallons of water used to grow, process, and transport the beans for one single cup of the artist's favorite coffee house coffee. Those 3 days, average of 3 to 5 defecations and a lot of urinations, expelling hormones, antibiotics, microplastics, and whatever else the artist has been consuming. Yeah, it's all natural waste, but untreated it becomes biological waste. Treating it takes wastewater plants using insane amounts of water and electricity. Then there's showers, laundry, lights, heat or AC or fans. Spotify running in the background, using yet another server somewhere else. Transportation, art supplies, garbage collection services. Hell, in that 30-hour grind on the canvas, the artist is exhaling approximately 3 pounds of carbon dioxide and emitting roughly 3 kilowatt hours of heat just by being. To summarize that point, AI uses water and electricity and makes heat to create its products. Almost said projects, but products. Could be projects. Who knows? Humans use water, food, water, electricity, and water while making heat, gases, biological waste, chemical waste, recyclable and non-recyclable waste, and pollutants in far higher volumes to create its products or projects. Suddenly, it makes you wonder if AI shouldn't take our jobs. We're pigs. Now that the anti-AI purists have left the room, I'll go deeper. Let's look at the argument that AI is stealing the work of real people. Guess what? So are you. And you. And you. And you too, back there hiding in the corner. AI comes together as a blank slate, an empty tool that we force feed people's art and writing so it can mimic the styles and output. Yes, that sounds horrible, until we look at the hypocrisy of it all. Humans come into the world as blank slates, and they are trained, just like AI, on the work of others. Okay, class, today we're going to teach you how to write poetry by training you on Shakespeare, Chaucer, Frost, Whitman, Poe. We're going to teach you how to write stories by training you on Shelley, Bronte, Le Guin, Orwell. We're going to teach you drawing, shading, and painting by training you on Van Gogh, Dali, Warhol. We're going to teach you music by training you on Mozart, Bach, and Beethoven. Then, you're tested on it to make sure you've properly been trained on copying that work someone else did sometime in history. We slam AI for copying the work of others when we do the same thing. Go with me on this. If you raised a child in a lab environment and the only access to written work was Stephen King books, and this child learned to read and write using only Stephen King examples, when asked to create their own written work, the child would think that was the only style and format to write in. Humans are predictive pattern machines and learn by absorbing patterns. The child would not be copying Stephen King, merely using the only pattern they had access to learn. Humans imitate the patterns they are exposed to, just like saying 6, 7. There is heaps of research available on the topic, including experiments with feral children and people in isolation. What we experience is how we think. And everything you see, read, smell, taste, and think of someone else's work becomes a part of your training. As novelist E.M. Forster once said, "What is wonderful about great literature is that it transforms the man who reads it towards the condition of the man who wrote." Basically meaning, when you read something, you start to think like the person who wrote it. I mentioned hypocrisy before. We're making tools to do exactly what we do, but faster, and apparently with a much smaller environmental impact. Then we wag a finger at the tools and say, "Don't do what we do." Which leads into the next anti-AI argument. It does what we do, but faster and cleaner. But it can't think or feel, so AI will never have heart or soul or emotion. Here's where we distinguish between the surgeon doing brain surgery with a scalpel or with a jackhammer. If you prompt the AI to make 1,000 pictures of a generic prompt, you will get generic jackhammer results. If you craft a prompt, just like writing a short essay, and generate one image, then rewrite your prompt and try again until you get what you want, the work being produced should ultimately mimic the thoughts and feelings you put into it. That image is from you, using a tool, just like if you used a brush or a French curve. I always get a kick out of the people saying AI can't create anything with heart or soul, then saying AI will take our jobs. If your creations can be replaced by something without heart or soul or feelings, what does that say about your work? That said, do I use AI? Obviously, yes. But I'm the guy crafting over and over to get one result that mirrors my vision. And that, I believe, is how we use this tool without it controlling us. I've written some things using AI as a tool for checking grammar, punctuation, extra spell check based on context, etc. I write until I need a break, feed it into the AI for those checks, and when it says, let's rewrite this for better this or better that, I rage against the machine. I write the way I write, and everything I write, flaws and all, are deliberate choices. A sentence sounds like crap with bad flow? Yeah, but in context and rhythm, it is exactly the way I need it to be. I'm writing my stories, not someone else's entertainment. And I have to constantly remind the AI of that when I use it for help. Coincidentally, I was using this very process when the TikToks were fuming about the M dash. Whenever the AI tried telling me an M dash is the best way to handle a sentence, I would rewrite several sentences so I wouldn't use M dashes just to appease the whiny masses. Meanwhile, I was binge reading horror and sci-fi ranging from around 1880 to 1920. That's not a screw up. I was specifically trying to find horror and sci-fi from before Lovecraft's writing period. If you like reading horror and sci-fi, I highly recommend it. It's good stuff. Let me tell you, the amount of M dash was off the charts. We must actually be using less AI than they did in 1888. Then, the sights got turned on the Oxford comma. I didn't even know what that was. I had to look it up. And then I laughed. Going to school in the 1980s and 90s, what you call the Oxford comma was called the comma. I didn't know there was a special name for it, only that commas are supposed to work like that. It's almost like somewhere in the last 30 years, the education system started failing us, and the social network system started entitling us. And speaking of the social network system, you know the algorithm? Oddly spelled word you didn't know existed until you heard that it worked under the hood to drive your likes and follows and FYPs. The algorithm, in the context of social networking, is a frickin' I, as we know it right now. So, if you're going to condemn AI, you should probably delete your accounts on TikTok, The Lemon, Insta, Facebook, X, Blue Sky, all of them. Or don't. Hypocrisy makes the world go round. You know, when you take those amazing pictures of the sky with your flagship phone, and it captures the colors and removes the blur caused by your shaky hands, and the moon has every detail you can imagine? Yeah. There's a specialized AI in there in your phone that fixes the picture you took before it gets to your gallery. While you're deleting accounts, it's probably best to just snap the phone over your knee or stick it in a blender. AI isn't going away. The trick is in how we use it, how we apply the tool to our tasks to keep our vision intact. If someone tells the AI to copy the writing or art style of someone else, that artist or writer is just as capable of doing the exact same copying. Next time you plan to jump into someone's comments and bash their use of AI, count how many coffees you've had this week, how many breaths you've taken. You want to blacklist a video game for using AI art assets instead of a whole team of 2D and 3D artists breathing and drinking coffee or tea or soda? That's fine. But that removes the legitimacy of your concerns about the environmental impact of AI. Remember, hypocrites aren't just large mammals rolling 20s. There we go. My 3 cents on the AI discussion. Would have been 2 cents, but I rambled on a little bit longer than I intended to. But, kind of makes a fellow wonder, don't it? If I time this at all accurately, we should just about be wrapping up this episode of HCMCS2. As you saw, I did some night mining for iron. Kept poking my head out to keep track of time. Ran a little long into the day. Day 3. But you know how Minecraft sucks you in. Chopping up some wood. And keep exploring. Should probably start wrapping this up, eh? This was kind of neat. I remember finding this and thinking it was... I didn't know what it was. It was a floating something. I mean, it's part of a village, but it's basically an igloo. A lot of new stuff in Bedrock that I am just not familiar with. But if it's part of a village, where's the rest of it? Here we go. Make my tunnel. Make it safe. Put up a torch. And I'm going to call it. Thanks for bending an ear. Thanks for watching. Have a happy.